The video you're about to watch, the talk I just gave here at the IRG Summit in Cancun on how to go from blend to brand. Let's go. All starts with the story. And for me, in 2016, when I started my business, I was watching content from a total stranger as I was trying to figure out the ropes. And I didn't go to college. I'm a first-born immigrant, so like education just never really stood out for me, as I always grew up working in a restaurant. So YouTube was like this free place of knowledge for me. Ended up watching content from this guy, the Christo, who runs an account called The Future. Well, through a series of events, from me making content, him making content, we ended up connecting and ended up working with him. And funny enough, my first time in Cancun was 2 years ago, where I came with Chris, and he was going to talk to the EO group. And if you guys don't know who Chris is a business coach, but also personal branding coach. He helps people develop their brand and really get their message out. He has about almost 1 million followers on Instagram. We 2.7 on YouTube and around 500,000 on another Instagram account. And the reason I bring this up is that through content, it has gotten me to go to a lot of different places. And to some people, content sometimes could feel like a waste of time. It could feel like a vanity metric. It could feel like it's too much effort. But for me, I found that content was a place that gave me endless opportunities to go across and do a lot of different things. It's taken me to places like England, Dubai, Singapore, Mexico twice now, Miami, Vegas, New York, Los Angeles. And through working with Chris, I've gotten to meet and do podcasts and workshops with some very important, influential people in the industry. So working with him over the past 2.5 years, I've been learning a lot and gathering a lot of different insights. And I'm going to try to package these insights for you guys in a way that you're going to be able to apply them into your business. So Instagram is your new business card. People want to know who you are, what you do, what's it going to be like to work with you. And it's your opportunity to make a great first impression. And you only get a chance to do that once. So why not create a story for people to make the best impact when they're looking to possibly work with you? Because the truth is, most people are probably not going to go to your LinkedIn or go to your website to see what is it that you do. So I want you to reflect. What does your social media say about you? Does it make people want to work with you? Does it make people want to buy your products? And if not, are you ready to change that? So Benedict Carey wrote this book, How We Learn. And the interesting thing about how we learn is learning is a process of forgetting. So to make room for new ideas, you have to forget old ones that you can start implementing into your business. What is a brand? Marty Neumeier, he is what we consider in the industry the godfather of branding. He has worked with Apple, Microsoft, like all the big dogs in Silicon Valley. He has probably had a hand in working with them. And his definition of a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or a company. It's not what they say it is, it's what we say it is. And the way I always like to look at that is, imagine if Marriott made a shoe. What would that shoe look like? Well, I wasn't sure, so I asked Chat. I said, Chat, Marriott made a shoe, what would that look like? So he came up with this, which I was like, I don't know if it feels like it's a Marriott thing, but I was like, all right. I was like, hey, can you give me another one? So give me that. And I was like, all right. I was like, I can kind of see that feels like more like a Marriott. But then I was like, what about if Nike made a hotel? What would that look like? But I think for a lot of us, you probably have a better idea what that would feel like, right? Because Nike has such an impact as a brand because we already have a gut feeling about what is it that they do and what they stand for. So it gave me this one. So this is like a very modern hotel, feels like something you might see in New York City, and a place that I might want to consider. So I was having fun, and I was like, hey, what about if this was in Cancun? So it gave me this one here, which I thought was pretty cool. Nike has a brand, right? They created a feeling in their customer's mind about what they stand for. And that's what we want to do with what we're putting out there. What is branding? And there's always a misconception, branding, what's a brand, brand identity. Branding is the action you take to build a certain image about your company. So the thing is, a lot of us do a lot of marketing and advertisement instead of brand building. The problem with marketing and advertisement is that most of the time when we create content, we're trying to push a product, we're trying to sell something. Most of us go to social media to want to escape, to want to be entertained. So when we're interrupting that has come at a cost of what we're doing with our viewers and our audience. Before you post something, I want you to ask yourself, is it selfless or is it selfish? So consider that before you make your next post, because at the end of it, it all comes at a cost. It comes at a cost of your brand and your reputation. The content that you're posting, I want you to think about it. Is this content positioning you as a thought leader or an expert? To widen the gap between when we ask and what we give. We have to give more than what we ask out of our audience, because without that, it just becomes a transaction. Pixar, I know you guys have heard of this one, especially if you have kids. Pixar is probably one of the most famous animation studios in the world. They've won 23 Academy Awards, 10 Golden Globes, and 11 Grammys. Well, they have this little thing called Pixar's 22 Rules of Storytelling. You know what rule number 1 is? You admire a character more for trying than their success. Because perfect at the end of the day, it's boring. You guys seen Finding Nemo before, right? The story is not really about Finding Nemo, it's more about a dad, a single dad, that is very overprotective over his son, and he tries to control everything that he does, and his son becomes rebellious. And something happens to him. I don't want to give spoilers in case you haven't watched it, but he has to go on a journey to go find his kid. And through that process, he meets a couple of different characters that really helps him develop as a person. And through that, there's a bunch of other characters, sharks, whales, turtles, jellyfish, scuba divers, before he can come and reconnect with the sun again. And the reason I tell you this is because when we tell our stories, we need to be able to share those unperfect moments with our audience to be able to connect with them. 2 weeks ago, I was in Dubai at the 1 Billion Creator Summit, and I was actually having a pretty good time. It was an awesome event, but I kind of wanted to post this photo, which I thought it was looking cool. There's the Future Museum, and I was like, all right. And I thought to myself, is this selfless or is this selfish? And I was like, you know what? It is probably a very selfish piece of content. It brings value to no one. So I wanted to reflect on what is it that I'm teaching you guys here today. So I decided to share a different story. Well, the reason I went to the 1 Billion Creator Summit was because I was invited to go with my buddy Chris, the guy I shared that I met a couple years ago, because he's a world-renowned speaker. He gets invited everywhere. So we got invited to this dinner, and when we went to this dinner, this was the insider dinners of creators, of people with millions of hundreds of followers. And when I walked in there, I felt like I didn't belong, because the seat I got at the table was because somebody invited me. It wasn't a seat that I earned. Through the night, I ended up sitting across from this blonde, tall, Swedish guy, and we started up a conversation. That guy there ends up being the CEO of Epidemic Sound. It's one of the largest sound libraries for music and creators. And I shared a story of how I felt like I didn't belong, how I didn't deserve a seat at the table, and the lessons that I learned from that. And then I ended up having one of the best engagements for content for me as a post. And it wasn't people fire emoji or hearts and stuff like that, or my mom commenting about it. It was more people yo, I'm so proud of you. I love seeing the journey. I love that you shared something that wasn't just this glamour. What I'm asking you guys is, are you sharing these stories with the people who follow you? Or are you just trying to sell products or services? A product or service without a story is a commodity. No story, commodity. I know you guys can help me with this one. How much is this bottle of water worth?
How thirsty are you? How thirsty are you?
How thirsty are you? Somebody said something back there. Depends where you're at. Great. Anybody else?
How much you need?
How much you need? All right. How thirsty you are. Very good. Sparkling. There's also no label. Would you pay a lot for water with no label? Do you know where it came from? Now let's say I put this water in this cup. Now how much is this water worth? Probably wouldn't pay a lot, and if it's in Mexico and you're not sure, probably not gonna drink it, right? Now, what about this water? What is this one worth? A lot? Probably more than $5, maybe $10 at the airport. So what do we have here? This is from the Rolled Islands of Fiji. Natural artesian water, untouched by man, bottled at the source. Earth's finest water. There's a story that we tell ourselves about this. Has anyone gone to Fiji to check if this is made of the same plant as that one? No, but we're willing to pay a premium because there's a story attached to this product. So another product that I came across that you guys might be familiar with is Liquid Death. Have you guys heard of this one? Longest time, I thought this was a beer. I thought it was like an energy drink, and then I actually found out that it is water in a can, right? Their messaging is murder your thirst, death to plastic. Right? They're telling you a story about their water. So when everyone's zigging and talking about how their bottles are recycled plastic, they put it in a can. They zagged. And that's what you want to do when you want to stand out in the market. And it all comes down to how you package and position your brand. So Fiji, that is what you imagine when you see Fiji, right? It is this high-end, very polished, you might get it at the Four Seasons as their water. Where here you have Liquid Death that tapped into, if you guys seen the show on Amazon, The Boys, this is one of the main characters that he's like a mutant fish guy and he lives, he has to be in contact with the water. They're tapping into that, right? They're really thinking about who their customers are. Without a story, there's no perceived difference between you and someone else. What story are you telling when it comes to your brand? Johnny Earl, if you guys are not familiar with Johnny Earl, he goes by name also known as Johnny Cupcakes. Johnny Cupcakes used to play in a band when he was younger, and he was in charge of the merch and selling the merch. And he noticed that when they were touring throughout the country, that they used to go to like all these places. Everyone's very tough, and there's skulls and all that everywhere. And Johnny, being kind of the funny guy, his name is Johnny Cupcake, right? He's not can be that serious. He decided one day to take the skull out of that and put a cupcake on it. Now it's like serious, but it's also cute. The merch that they were selling on tour became so popular that the next year, Johnny quit the band. Johnny went off to start a little boutique, kind of a speakeasy place in Boston where you can come and buy these shirts. When you go to the Boston store, you walk in through an oven, very similar to like where you're gonna be doing at a speakeasy. And then when you walk in, there's these oven doors that open out and shoot like steam and smoke, sort of like you're walking in Disney. And he has vanilla air fresheners all over, so it feels like you're walking into a bakery. He's really trying to create this experience for you. And then with the design, he has these checkered, kind of like diner kind of feeling in the floor. The display cases are, old fridges. He has, deli containers. And you could tell he doesn't have these stacked up with shirts, right? It's like one or two. He's really trying to display this like it was, a cake or some bread that you're gonna buy. And then when you buy these special edition t-shirts, they come in a can. So most people have these packagings that when you get something, you throw it out. People collect his. Other things that Johnny does, so he launches a new shirt every single week. And when he does certain promotions, he hires an ice cream truck and he'll post on his social media, we're gonna be in the corner of Johnson and Avenue. And he sells these t-shirts out of an ice cream truck. Well, people are also very upset at Johnny because being in a place called Johnny Cupcakes, people expected him to sell cupcakes. He did not, just shirts. Someone wrote a very nice, review about the fact they didn't have any cupcakes. They ended up making this into a shirt and selling it one morning where they actually offered breakfast, cupcakes, maple syrup, the whole spread that you could think about. And guess what? They sold out. There's another very boring business that I came across that I thought was cool to share. This one's called Pinks. Pink's Window Services. They're based in Austin, and they are a window cleaning business. Nothing very sexy about that. But what they did with their brand identity is that they really wanted to tie in into this like nostalgic 80s blue collar vibes. And they do this through their messaging, and they do this through the content that they create on their social media. So, we're close friends first and business partners second. We're in the business of flipping the script in blue collar service industry. And guess what? They even sell merch, and they sell out all the time. They do limited edition 200 pieces. I think that's very interesting that a very boring business can do something so fun and actually have customers talking about it. The fact that I'm here talking about a brand I've never even bought the service from to a group of 100 people. But you guys kind of get the visuals of the story that they're trying to tell here with the content that they make. And everything that they do is kind of very this nostalgic vibe to it. What I'm trying to tell you is different is better than better. You don't always have to be better than your competitors. You just have to be different to stand out in their minds. And here's the truth. We're probably not gonna figure all this out this weekend where we're drinking margaritas on the beach, or maybe tomorrow if you're in a boat, if you're gonna go to the island with us. But I want you guys to start thinking about what can you start doing to start standing out in your customer's mind. I want you to start thinking about what makes you, you. Where did you come from? What are your life experiences? What is it that you like to do? The more of these things that you can overlap into the content that you're making, not just about the products that you're selling, the stronger your personal brand is going to become. Personal brand, it's not a way for you to sell more products. It's not a way for you to create a new sales funnel and get people to sign up for your email list. Personal brand is a way for you to be able to connect with your audience at scale. It's a way for you to build trust. Simon Sinek, if you guys haven't watched, this is probably one of the most popular YouTube or TED Talks out on YouTube. And he has this quote from the talk is, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So most of you are probably in this business because you make a shit ton of money, and also because you believe in entrepreneurship and you believe in people that take risks, and you want to help and serve those people that are growing their businesses. But how many of you communicate that in the content that you're making right now? I asked you to create how you consume. So if you're putting out a piece of content out there that you wouldn't read or you wouldn't share, don't make somebody else do it for you. All right? So let's get into some tactical stuff. I don't want to just sit here and rah-rah you all morning. So I got a couple of different frameworks for you that I have learned over the past 2 years. So the first one is 411. Not the hotline, but a new framework that I want you guys to try out. It's 4 pieces of helpful content. So this is going to be things that actually bring value to your audience that has nothing to do, it has something to do with your business, but you're not selling your product. So for you guys, I always think about what is a proper way to wash your scrubs, meal prepping for, nurses, insights into the business. You guys just spent, 30 minutes before I got here talking about different business insights and how to grow your business. You should be sharing all of that inside of your content. One personal story. So for me, was my Dubai story. And one thing I want to say with the personal stories, you might post those and you see that it gets a lot of engagement. You don't want to constantly repeat the kind of same sad story over and over again, because people will get tired of that. You might just want to share something good that's happening in your life as well. So just keep that in mind. And the last one is your call to action. This is your free hall pass to hey, post, buy my scrubs. Daniel Priestley, he wrote this book, Keepers of Influence. We got to produce a couple of different podcasts with him. And he has this framework that I really love. And I think that one that for you guys, especially I could see across the room, most of you have probably been in business for over 15 to 20 years. Tell me about a time you did something special for a specific type of person and got a remarkable result. Daniel is doing this workshop, and there's this lady, and she's a financial planner, and Daniel asked her to share her story. And she talks about how she's a financial planner. She helps manage, people's wealth and handles hundreds of millions of dollars, and you can tell it gets really, really boring. Daniel asked her to go back to the question, tell me about a time you did something special for a specific type of person and got a remarkable result. And she goes, well, there's one time I helped a family that had a son that was a young farmer. He went off to college in a big city, and he fell in love. And he got married and they moved back to the farm. Well, 2 years later, something happened. They're on their way to get divorced. Daniel says, come on, what happens next? He's like, well, I came in, I was able to help them. They didn't end up going through a divorce. So Daniel's very curious and he goes, well, what is it about your story that you're able to save this family from going through a divorce? She goes, well, 20 years ago, I was a city girl that became a cowgirl. That's Beyonce, by the way. It wasn't the actual girl. I like that image. But she goes, I was a city girl and fell in love with the farmer and I moved to the city. And I didn't know my expectations were going to be to move into a multi-generation city, family of farmers. And I had to go through all these things and understand what my roles are. So now, she specializes on helping farming families that bring in outsiders and multi-generation, like their older, like say the grandparents, how they're phasing out. She helps them manage their wealth and plan out what the next steps are. So she went from being a financial advisor to appearing in podcasts, to becoming a public speaker, to even writing a book. So I think that's pretty exciting because I think all of you have stories here of people that you have helped and have impacted their lives that I think that you guys should start sharing those stories. But you have to get better at telling your story to do this. So something that you want to keep in mind as you're thinking about creating this content is, who are you writing for? For me, I write to content creators that are looking to create a lifestyle business. That is who I try to communicate to when I create content. And what story are you trying to tell? For me, when I was reflecting back on my trip to Dubai, I was like, I wanted to tell the story of how I felt like I didn't belong. And that helped me create the narration for the post that I was gonna make. Here's what happened, here's what I learned. For you guys, could be, here's what happened. I was at the IRG Cancun. I was with a bunch of different entrepreneurs. These are the best 5 insights I got from the table I was sitting at. So you can repeat that as a piece of content over and over again. Now, this is another framework I want to bring up. His name is Brendan King. He wrote the book Hook Point. Name of fame is he got like 1 million subscribers in 30 days following some of the things that he does. And I know last year I talked about doing trends for views. This year I want to do formats for followers. And what I mean by that is that with last year, with trends, there's a lot of different possibilities for you to get a lot of different exposure. The problem with trends is that you're always chasing them. There's always something new. You don't build repetition by doing something different every single day. You build repetition and knowledge by doing something over and over again. So there's this guy, his name is Tanner Leatherstein, and what he does, he buys luxury handbags and luxury goods and he like rips them apart, but like not like with his hands, but he has like a knife and he like cuts it all up. And he does that through the content, and he has this concept called, is it worth it? He has this shoe, I think it's like $800. He literally rips it apart, takes it apart, and he breaks down the materials. He looks into the stitching. He's like, is this double-sided stitching? What kind of leather is this? If it's a handbag, he looks at the buckle, and he does all these different like the price there. Like all these things are very visually appealing, because who's gonna buy an $800 pair of shoes and then rip them apart? Probably not a lot of people. So this is a format that he's doing over and over and over again. And this is another one he did, Mulberry, is it worth it? So for most people, you're gonna find out. So the same thing, he shows the whole process of their packaging. How does it come? So all these things tell a story. Like people pay attention to these things. Why did it work? This piece of content works really well. One, because there's a visual hook. You want to know, is it going to be worth it? You're seeing something that most people normally don't see, is somebody taking apart a luxury good. And then there's also the hook point and having to keep you all the way at the end to find out, is it worth it or not? But what I love the most about this is, if you look at the back, all the boxes and things that he has, that's actually his brand. He barely talks about what is it that he sells. But because he's sitting here taking apart these items and talking about the quality that goes into it, finding out if is it worth or not, he's positioning himself as a thought leader, as an expert. And from that, people are going to be like, well, if he sells bags, his bags has to be good. They have to be worth it. So indirectly, people are going to go to his website to want to buy his product, to find out what is it that he has. So Erica Goldberg, she has this concept, it's called One Light Bulb, Two Ideas, where she kind of plays both sides of a narration. So with this one here, she has this whole thing is like, I read the fine print so you don't have to. So like she shows how she returned a Nike shoe after having it for like a year. And there's this whole thing with the fine print that after 2 years, if something happens to your shoe, you can return it. So she does this whole bit over and over again. She does it with airlines. If you miss your flight, this is what you need to do. And this is another one she did with like her AirPods got stolen and how she was able to get a new pair. These are all different formats that by you doing them over and over and over again, you get known for this, but you also build a reputation of talking on camera, figuring out what works for you or not. There's 1 billion users on LinkedIn with only 3% publishing regularly, 2.9 billion users on YouTube with only 4 have an account and a fraction are creators. And the reason I tell you this is because there's more consumers out there than there are creators, and there's a huge opportunity for all of you guys to take your share of the market. I ask you, make the jump from a consumer to a creator. I think a great opportunity for everyone here, especially because of what you guys were just doing before I came up to speak, is to create a podcast. But create a podcast that you guys are interviewing each other, that you're actually getting on camera. You're talking about the different things about your business, your knowledge, your expertise, how you guys hire people, how you fire people. Leverage those to not only build your brand here with IRG, but to build your brand locally. I have a friend back in South Florida. He has a podcast called the Palm Beach Podcast. Not very creative, but if you hear about it, you're like, hey, that's the Palm Beach Podcast. So if you're able to tap into the name of your town and where you live and do that into a podcast, it could work wonders for you. So his whole game plan, and it works for him, is he interviews local people to come into his podcast. He'll do local influencers, but then he also interviews people that he wants to do business with. So imagine that you guys build up a little name for yourselves and you start inviting the doctors and nurses and people that you actually want to work with into your podcast. The connection that you're going to be able to build with those people. And the great thing about podcasts is that it gives you a lot of on-camera time. It gives you a lot of content that you guys can create. Now, for an example here, I'm recording this video. This is going to be turned into one long-form piece of content, and then also it's going to be turned into a couple different separate ones. It's 1 hour of my time filming for maybe half a dozen or more pieces of content. 2025 is going to be the podcast era, and you guys probably already know this. I'm not trying to get political, but Trump did over 20 podcast interviews where Kamala only did 7. In his first week, he had over 23 million views online, where she had 8. You're going to see the world's biggest CEOs start podcasting this year to start to build a personal brand and start sharing those stories. And I think all of you guys can do that. So what I want you to do is create 10 to 20 hours of content this year. It might sound like a lot, but it's really not. That's 1 hour per month of you doing a podcast. And this is easy. I think you guys could do at least 2 or 3 podcasts, right? And the reason I tell you this 10 to 20 hours is because it's going to implement the 7-11-4 rule. You need 7 hours, 11 interactions at 4 different locations. Now, locations could be platforms and different things like that. But what this does, this helps people build a connection with you. This is actually a study done by Google of how long it took for somebody to feel familiar with you to recognize you. So if I walked in here and you guys saw me, yo, there's Gustavo there. That's where you need to be able to build a connection with someone. So by creating podcasts and creating the content and putting it out into social media, it's going to get people to be more familiar with you. But this is also a very funny thing. It creates a parasocial relationship. Now, a parasocial relationship is a thing that we have with famous people and influencers, right? We see them, we feel like we know them, we buy their skims or their tequila bottles because we felt like we've seen these persons before. By creating content, you're able to do that. with your content, you can build connections at scale, but your story is the only thing that makes you different than anyone else. Yara here is videographer I hired. Actually, today's the first day I met her, but we became friends during the pandemic through TikTok content that she was making. At that time, she was living in Dallas, and she has eczema as a condition. And because of that, she wanted to move to a place that, I guess with the humidity here, it was better for her skin. She moved to Cancun. And I've been following her story. So when I knew I was gonna come and do this talk here today, the first person I thought about was her. I was like, who am I gonna hire? Because I felt connected to the story that she was sharing. She shared something that most people would hide from the public. She put it out there, and through that, I felt a connection with her. I wanted to be a part of her story. So I feel like we all have things inside that we sometimes don't feel like we want to share with the public. But she even told me she has built a community with other people that have eczema that connected with her. And I think that's something special. From my mentor, this quote he likes to say, "You're not getting any younger, so today's a good day to start." I think for all of you, I think today is a pretty good day to start for you guys to start making content. And the thing is, you don't have to be everywhere. I think for all of you, the two main platforms I would still focus on would be Instagram and LinkedIn, just because people do not post in LinkedIn. There's very few people. The competition there, if you guys are actually putting out content to reach the audience that you're looking for, there's massive reach there. But Instagram is still the one place that people will look you up in, and it's a great way for you to build your business brand, but also your personal brand. I used this site last year, but I'm gonna use it again. If you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done. So just post it. So I want to leave the room open for some Q&As. If anybody has some questions.
Two things, personal brand and hold on.
Mike?
Very little of them, but I do very little of myself, is getting in front of the camera and sharing those real stories that can be anything with our audience.
Guys, this camera that you have in your phone is one of the best devices out there. I mean, like, these are great, but like, I've shot plenty of content on this. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can literally just, hit record and talk to the camera here and share that. The era of having to have highly produced content, it's over. I mean, it's not over, but like, the problem right now with not the problem, but like, you guys see plenty of AI videos, right? AI videos look very super polished. So the one thing that's gonna make you feel more organic is putting a selfie video of you talking to the camera. It doesn't take that long for you to walk out of this room and record a video sharing two things that you just learned. You're facing the window so you get that good light and you're good to go.
One of the things I personally would challenge myself this year is making sure I'm capturing just things that I'm doing every day. Delivering, going into a practice, delivering a grooving, catching that process and connecting with but it's almost like you have somebody with you following you to create all.
You can, and I think that's where you start, and eventually when you actually start seeing the results from it, you invest in somebody. Like, I invested in somebody to be here today, right? So there's certain moments that like, hey, this is gonna be good for camera, spend a little bit extra money.
So personal branding, what I'm hearing is personal branding for ourselves as positioners, as business owners in the community, is just as important as our business brand.
I'd say it's more important.
I have a two-part question. Number one is, how do you deal with the creative burnout? I've been making content for about 2 years now, and I've accumulated over 4 million followers on different platforms. And for the past few months, there's a lot of things that have been going on personally and professionally. I've been really burned out. I have the most content, and I really don't know how to get back to it. And part two of that question is, how do you bridge the personal brand with the business brand? Because the content that I was making prior to being in business has nothing to do with business, and I would like to leverage that audience I would have with my business.
Okay, so let's start part one first again. So the question is, how do you deal with burnout? I think it goes to resetting. So I would say I constantly deal with burnout. Like, I like to take trips. Like, I took 10 trips last year, right? Like, I know when I've been working every single day since I got here to put together this deck, and I need those times apart where I need to disconnect. And I know for me is I need to go away for a week. to reset. So you got to give yourself that time and space for you to like heal, to get back to it. Because if you try to push through a burnout and you're putting out content that you don't feel passionate about, your viewers feel that. They can sense that you're not happy about it. So why are they going to connect with something that you didn't put any love into making? With the part two, with bridging the content, I think it's as simple as you shooting a video that you're like, hey guys, I'm in this new journey. I'm going to be transitioning to doing this. I appreciate all the followers I got in this account here so far. This is what you're going to be seeing from me coming to this account. If you guys want to be part of that journey, I'd love to be able to share that with you guys. If not, I totally understand.
And then follow up to that, I do a lot of content in Spanish. Actually, a lot of it is half English, half Spanish, and that's the formula that doesn't work for me.
Okay.
But should I focus in all English, all Spanish, create a separate account for all Spanish, all English? How would you deal with that?
It depends. I'm not sure what platform you're using. So with YouTube specifically, before we were using a software called 11 Labs. If you guys don't know 11 Labs, they are like kind of the forefront of like AI integration. So like you can upload like a 10-minute video of you speaking, and it can create an avatar of you talking to camera. It could also dub your voice into different languages. But actually the crazy thing about it is that it actually sounds like you. Like if you're speaking Chinese, it would sound like you spoke Chinese. So with that being said, I think about a month or two ago, YouTube's are offering that as a free feature. So for you, I think it'll depend on looking at your analytics and figuring out, what is my audience asking for? Are they asking for more English content, or are they looking for more Spanish content? I just know if you're trying to do multiple things at once, maybe that's why you're getting burnt out, because you're getting pulled to so many different directions, where sometimes finding that one might be the best way for you to go.
But I have a question. IRG is going to be launching a new collection here in 2026. So for branding that collection within our brand, what would you think we should focus on for our end users and for our members to really launch that brand?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, I would have to understand more about what is it that you're launching for me to tell you like, hey, this is what you need to focus on, without having any idea of what is it you guys are doing, what your goals are. It's hard for me to give you a non-generic advice. So if that's something that you guys are trying to do, I'd love to, sometime here or tomorrow on the boat, talk about what is it that you're doing. You can pick my brain as much as you want.
Okay. Do you think focusing on that content, though, creating a story around that and creating this?
Sharing the story of you guys launching, I think that would be more captivating. Actually, the process of you guys sitting down, sharing maybe meetings of what you guys are doing, going out to your vendors to check in the product, that is more captivating to watch than what the final product is. Because if you're capturing the story all the way up to the big release, people are buying into that, right? So then maybe the day that you guys do launch is the day that you guys actually show. You want to tease it a little bit.
Great tease.
Yeah. These are accounts that I recommend you guys follow.